Welcome to the Murder Media Podcast, where we analyse and overthink true crime. I'm your host, Dr. Stella Marie Gaynor, and you can follow the project on Instagram at murdermedia81, that's the numbers 81, and on Facebook. And as I've forgotten to say in the last two episodes, you can email the podcast directly at murdermedia81@gmail.com. But yes, you probably know that already. Who uses email anyway? I'm recording this one straight after the other one because it's the only time that I can see in the foreseeable that I can do it. So it's still bin day, and the cat still is wandering around, who might possibly try and get involved at some point. So I've got absolutely nothing else to tell you because it is about 45 minutes after I ended recording the last one. So I guess we'll just start, shall we? This week, we're going to examine one of my favourite subjects, cases, crimes, and one of my favourite films as well. And a documentary that's just okay. Like, it's fine. It does a reasonable job. But as ever, once we analyse and overthink it, there are lots of things to think about and maybe have a bit of an issue with. So we're talking broadly about the Branch Davidians and the siege at Mount Carmel in Waco, Texas, that ended with the compound burning down and the deaths in total from the shootout, and by the end of the siege and the fire, of around 90 people. 24 of those people were children. So if you don't know, the Branch Davidians were led by David Koresh. Not his real name. His real name was Vernon something or other, but he changed his name to David Koresh because he was wanker. He was all about the impending apocalypse, and the followers lived with him on the compound Mount Carmel. He married a 14-year-old girl, dissolved all the marriages, all the women could only have sex with him. He had loads of kids with these women and children, and they were stockpiling weapons. They were also illegally modifying the weapons. Now, like I said in the last episode, I don't know shit about guns, but I think they were modifying them to make them stronger, louder, quieter, more automatic, whatever. But whatever they were doing, you're not allowed to do that with the guns. So I don't know. So there were reports made of child abuse going on. There is, quote unquote, massive scare quotes, wives were underage, or at least some of them were. Child protection services had been there. It got really complicated, and I don't remember all the details. And, you know, this isn't a true crime podcast. We are analysing and overthinking true crime media. So in a minute, I'll give you details of a book that you must read if you do actually want all of these details written beautifully and wonderfully, and it's just a fantastic book. I'll get there in a sec. Anyway, the authorities are like, shit, this place is dodgy as hell. Authorities are also onto all the weapons stuff. The ATF get involved, alcohol, tobacco and firearms unit get involved, and they want to raid the compound. The ATF have a man on the inside, as it were, and they are staking out the compound from a building sort of, how far away is the building? About a mile or so away. And they've been staking out the compound at Mount Carmel for a while. The Branch Davidians, or at least Koresh and his best buddy Steve Schneider, know they're being watched and they know about the man on the inside. Koresh is preaching that the apocalypse will come to them and that they will need to fight with their guns, and he preaches that they will all die in fire, to be translated, that's the word he used, immediately kind of risen up by the Lord, who will come back with them as a glorious holy army to fight, well, I don't know, to fight the rest of us, to fight in the apocalypse. Fucking knows what horse shit it was on about. But the point is, he promised them apocalypse, he promised them a gunfight, and he promised them fire, and that's what they got. The ATF wanted the element of surprise for the raid. That's generally how a raid works. You rock up and everyone goes, well, what the fuck? The ATF were a bit twitchy, though, because of Ruby Ridge. And I won't go into that here. Go look it up. But in short, they ballsed that one up too and killed civilians in a bungled raid. But this raid at Mount Carmel really needed to be well executed. They needed to not cock this one up. So they get to Waco. Are ready, and some TV news crews knew about the raid. Why? I don't remember. But this news reporter couldn't find Mount Carmel. Christ knows why, it's the only thing for miles. And he asks a mailman for directions. And this mailman says to this TV reporter, why do you want to know where Mount Carmel is? And TV reporter says, well, the ATF boys are around the corner and they're going to do a raid, so I'm here to cover it for the news. Plot twist, the mailman was a Branch Davidian. So, of course, he hotfoots it back to the compound, tells David Koresh, who readies his people to fight, and armed to the fucking teeth they are. So the ATF get wind that their surprise is shot to shit, so rather than going in the next day or a day or so on the planned date, they mobilise now and they get on over there. So this is February 28th. 1993. They bung a load of armed dudes in big trucks that are covered with tarpaulins, and they go up there, they drive up there to Mount Carmel. A gunfight ensues, ATF and Davidians shooting at each other. It's absolutely crazy, and eventually a ceasefire happens and the Davidians won't come out. There's then a 51-day standoff, and on the last day, a fire breaks out and Mount Carmel burns to the ground in minutes. Like, it's appalling. There was essentially a fierce wind blowing that day, and it just made the fire rip through the building, and the building was quite sort of flimsy anyway. I think maybe 3 or 4 people got out. Everyone else perished. That's the very short version of that story. Very short version. Of course, there's so much more to it. So the book by Jeff Guinn, or Jeff Gunn, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, Guinn, and the book's called Waco. The book is incredible. I got it for Christmas and I devoured it, and he's so good. So Jeff Gunn, he also wrote Road to Jonestown, which is also wonderful. He's written a few books. He's written a book about Charles Manson as well. He is an incredible researcher, historian, journalist. He's a really engaging writer, and I can't recommend it enough. I know I'm always recommending books at you, but this one is, if you're interested in Waco at all, it's an incredible and must read. That was the short story of Waco and the Branch Davidians. Today then, I want to look at 2 media texts that deal with cults and Waco. One is explicitly about Waco, the Branch Davidians, and the fire at Mount Carmel, and the other is a little bit more hidden. So the first is a Netflix documentary called Waco, American Apocalypse, which was released in 2023, and the second is Red State, a film by Kevin Smith, which came out in 2011. Yes, Kevin Smith of Clerks and Jay and Silent Bob and Dogma did this film called Red State. So before we get to the media texts, we, as always, need to do some frameworks, we need to do some definitions, we need to do our reading. The Branch Davidians were a cult, a doomsday cult. We looked at cults a bit last series, with Shelley talking about Jonestown and the Sacrament, and Laura and I chatting about cults and true crime media more generally. Like all good lectures and all good essays, any students listening, define your key terms first. Let's define our key terms before we start. So what is a cult? The word cult is largely pejorative. Destructive or doomsday cults quite often are branched from established religious organisations or accepted belief systems. And Taves in 2011 says the difference is time. Time is the key factor for a movement to become part of the accepted religious landscape, to become recognised and legitimate. Lots of now recognised religions began as marginalised or branched off sects. For example, Scientology and Mormonism. If enough time passes and enough people join, then hey presto, the mad group is not a mad group anymore, and it's now a recognised religion. Hey, have you seen, there's been some stuff going on with TikTok. I mean, my teenager was telling me about it, about kids like raiding Scientology offices. Funny. Anyway, so a cult kind of rushes its members into being fully formed and indoctrinated, and it's generally outside the mainstream teachings of whatever branch or existing religion they've broken free from. So from examples, Branch Davidians and David Koresh were originally Seventh-day Adventists. Heaven's Gate and Marshall Applewhite, the leader of them, sort of twisted the end of days scripture with also added fun of an incoming spaceship. And People's Temple and Jim Jones were Christian and anti-segregation. All of these examples, though, are sort of bound together by they have a charismatic leader, a belief system that has all the answers. They offer special solutions if you follow all the rules, and that death will free them or reunite them with loved ones or allow you to return with the Lord. And the leaders eventually speak for God, and then sort of the savage tipping point is when they replace God. Or as in the case of the Branch Davidians, Koresh saw himself as the second coming of Christ. He claimed to be the Messiah. Now, as ever, I am, of course, simplifying this a lot for the fact that this is a podcast and I'm not reading aloud from Ann Tavez's book, or I'm not just, reading aloud from Jeff Gwynn's book. Cults are very complicated and there's a lot to read and to unpack about it. And this is, as ever, only scratching the surface, just to give you some frameworks before we get going. Media represents cults as secretive, sinister, manipulative, and it uses the term brainwashing, which certainly Laura and I rejected as a term last series. And the media represents cults as always having weird rituals, and, you know, some do. Popular culture oversimplifies the complex socio-cultural phenomena of cults, and it focuses on extreme cases. I mean, so are we here. We're looking at Waco, you know. So some of these broad representations, tropes and stereotypes are things like led by a single leader who has absolute authority, that the leader has unique knowledge or a divine insight or extraordinary abilities. So Shoko Asahara from Shinrikyo claimed that he could levitate and things like that. They isolate members from the outside world. There's a physical separation from the outside world by sort of taking people away and putting them in the compound. And there's also separation that isn't physical and isn't tangible. So we've got financial separation, control via manipulation, lots of coercion, abuse, both physical and emotional. The cults promote a very rigid belief system, which requires absolute commitment. Like, you're in or you're out. Like, there's no, you're not, well, you know, I'm a kind of a part-time member of Heaven's Gate. I don't quite believe in the spaceships, but I believe in some of the stuff. It's like, no, you're in or you're out. Cults have esoteric or apocalyptic visions. The Branch Davidians was apocalyptic. The cult will offer salvation or some kind of unique truth or simply just happiness and community. And it's these things that it offers or seemingly offers or tries to offer or lies that it offers that draws people in. People who, certainly as me and Laura talked about last series, people who are vulnerable. The media, especially news media, sensationalizes cults. And this increases viewership and engagement. Remember that news framing that we talked about last time, that when we looked at school shooters and sort of bringing people in to keep selling those newspapers, to keep the rolling news going, to keep the viewers. The media focuses on the criminal activity of the cult, the rituals and the quote-unquote mad practices, and not really why these groups exist or why the people might join them in the first place. And remember, like we said last time, no one joins a cult. No one thinks, oh, do you know what? My life, I'm not having it. I'm going to go and join an apocalyptic cult, which might end in flames. No one joins that. It's like what's the phrase? You know, it's putting the frog in the cold water and slowly turning up the temperature, and it doesn't realise that it's being boiled to death. You know, kind of like that. So these sensational representations spill over into narrative film. Think about things like Midsummer, Rosemary's Baby, Hereditary, and as we'll see in a bit, in Red State. So, again, no one joins a cult. People join these groups out of a desire for belonging, for community, or even just for some meaning. These groups attract people who are alone, isolated, in crisis, and vulnerable. For people who have a desire for community, a cult offers immediate emotional support. It's a ready-made family. This is appealing if a person feels disconnected or marginalised. Cults offer meaning and purpose and a sense of direction. A cult offers answers or alternative worldviews or alternative ways of living. Look at the Manson family. A cult offers certainty. A cult offers healing and self-improvement. And with all that being said, cults often also end badly. Let's hear the trailer for Waco, American Apocalypse.
It was a bunch of people that you could tell really loved each other. It was a very caring environment.
What about these people here? They think I'm the Son of God.
They believed that the end of the world is coming soon and that they were going to be in a battle with the federal government.
They were amassing enough armament to outfit a small army.
The ultimate goal was to arrest David Koresh and to seize all of the illegal weapons.
911, what's your emergency? 75 men around our building and they're shooting at us at Mount Carmel. Tell them there are children and women in here to call it off.
For the media, this is a big damn story.
Very ugly situation, almost a warlike zone going on there.
Get that camera out of here! Get out of here!
David made such statements as, "We are ready for war."
Okay, y'all been preparing 8 months for this. How long do you think we've been preparing?
I don't think there's any question she's coming out.
Coming out.
As a negotiator, our goal was always saving as many lives as you can.
We have moved in, we've taken that turf, and we're not leaving.
We got children in there. Let's work on getting these kids out.
They came in and attacked us.
It definitely was not us that shot first.
You could have dropped a bomb on us and we would not have come out.
We'll see one of the holes here.
David knew he was dying.
If he died, game over.
They believed that David Koresh was the key to their eternal salvation.
A lot of people have told me that he was trying to groom me.
There's no doubt that David Koresh had sex with young kids.
The whole time we were having sex, it was a Bible study.
That's insanity.
You're a damn liar!
If I pull the trigger, Leader's dead. The kids are safe. They all come out. It's over.
Do you put your trust in the Lord?
I am the Lord.
We're going to start then with Waco, American Apocalypse. It's a 3-part documentary directed by Taylor Russell, who has a really solid CV of documentaries, actually. So when I looked into this and I looked at what other stuff Russell had done, turns out he's done loads of stuff that I really like. So big fan of Taylor Russell there. Certainly not got as many issues with Russell as I do with Joe Berlinger. Anyway, so let's think about the scholarly analysis of documentary style for a second, using Nichols' framework. Right? If anyone has studied documentary, then you will have read Nichols' work and looked at his documentary modes. Shelley, if you're listening, I'm sorry. We're talking about documentary modes. I know that you're probably screaming, and I know when my kids doing film A level, and when they were doing the documentary modes, they were also very frustrated. I think it's because I'm not dissing Bill Nichols' work at all. It does actually, it's really fucking useful in unpacking and understanding documentary. It's just documentary scholarship is quite dry and it's quite difficult to deal with. My first chapter for the book on documentary was really hard to write. Waco, American Apocalypse is a combination of archive footage from news reports, so actuality footage, we'd call that, and actuality footage shot by the Davidians themselves, talking head interviews and some computer-generated reconstruction. For Nichols' modes, Waco, American Apocalypse uses 2 of these modes. Most documentaries these days are a combination of Nichols' modes, and Waco, American Apocalypse uses the expository mode and the reflexive mode. Now, I won't go through all of Nichols' modes because I can't be arsed, and 2, this isn't a documentary lecture. I'm not at work right now, but if you're interested, if you Google it, you'll be able to find a really quick sort of brief summary of Nichols' documentary modes. But I'm going to talk about expository and reflexive. So expository mode has an emphasis on voiceover commentary. In this documentary, American Apocalypse, the voiceover... Excuse me. Sorry, I'm just choking on this bit of air here. The voiceover comes from the talking head interviewees rather than a filmmaker. They narrate over the edited together footage. The expository mode has a problem-solution structure. The problem is introduced in the opening moments of the shootout and the start of the standoff in episode 1. The solution is presented as the struggle to the end of the standoff as the documentary unfolds in episodes 2 and 3. The editing in the expository mode is evidence. The footage is cut together to make an argument. Any students listening, if you're analysing a documentary as expository mode, really pay attention to how the edit constructs an argument. Look at what shot follows what shot follows what shot. What picture, narrative, argument is this forming? Okay, top tips. The other of Nichols' modes here in American Apocalypse is reflexive. This calls attention to the conventions of filmmaking. It acknowledges the constructed nature of the documentary. Here in American Apocalypse, it is explicitly clear in the copious use of split screens and the talking heads, and the people giving their account and the narrating of the footage, and as they occasionally look direct at the camera. At pertinent moments, this breaks the fourth wall. Looking directly at us jars us out of the flow of the text and reminds us of its construction. So I'm going to call it American Apocalypse from now on, rather than its full title. It's got 3 episodes. Broadly, episode 1 is the shootout, episode 2 is the negotiations and standoff. Negotiations is a hard word to say, so I'm going to trip over that every time. Episode 3 is the desperation on all sides, and the final day, the fire, and then a teeny bit at the end about what came after. So we'll go through the episodes in turn. I've got more stuff on episodes 1 and 3, but that's okay. Episode 1, titled In the Beginning, which is very nice. See what they did there. It starts with a title card that reads, quote, in 1993, the US government served a search warrant for machine guns against religious leader David Koresh. What followed was the largest gunfight on American soil since the Civil War. and a 51-day standoff that became the biggest news story in the world. End quote. I mean, I would agree. I remember it being on the news here. It then says that there is material in this series that has never been seen before. So then, we've got something new that this documentary is bringing to the table. American Apocalypse features videotapes filmed inside the FBI's hostage negotiation command post, raw news footage that was never aired, and FBI wiretap recordings. But that does seem to be a claim or boast that Netflix likes to make. Like the Bundy tapes, the Gacy and Dahmer tapes, it's all the never-before-heard stuff. If a story's going to be revisited for the umpteenth time, like Bundy, Gacy and Waco, then it does need to bring something new to the table. Another Netflix convention is quickly running over the main story beats in montage in the opening minutes. It races through the footage of Koresh preaching, thinking he's Christ, his wives, the guns, the shootout, Koresh injured, videos from inside the compound and the fire. And we've been shown all of this in like the first, 3 minutes of episode 1? So there's a few things going on here. Remember, I like the industrial conditions, I like the production conditions to help me to understand why something is put together the way that it is. Firstly, Netflix needs to show you what's coming so that you stay on the platform. Stick with this selection, because look, it's got guns and shooting and a fire stick. It also, and I think this is crucial to a significant chunk of Netflix's true crime content, the nostalgia angle. Did I talk about this with the Bundy tapes? So the Bundy tapes leans into nostalgia. It takes about 30 years for the pendulum swing of nostalgia to take effect. The Bundy tapes, they arrived 30 years after the execution. Those that remember it, or remember the time, the late 70s for the killing and the late 80s and early 90s for the execution, are adults now and remember that time. Go back to my Bundy tapes, episode 2 and 3, season 1, for more on that. Netflix thrives on nostalgia more broadly. Look at Stranger Things, Dark, Fear Street, all of its reruns. Those that have nostalgia for 20, 30, 40 years ago are those with the disposable income to now spend on a Netflix subscription. So with true crime and serial killers, we also get a nostalgia by proxy for a mediated version of the 1970s. But this episode isn't about them, it's about Waco. The point is, those that remember Waco happening are my age, mid-40s and above, so the nostalgia pendulum has swung so that revisiting Waco 30 years after it's happened is a good fit for that Netflix subscriber base that are about my age with the disposable income, who are kind of in the market for watching something that makes you go, oh yeah, I remember that happening. In the opening moments then, racing through the main story beats in the first few minutes helps those viewers to essentially be like, oh yeah, shit, I remember this. And for those new to the story, it gives them a taste of what's to come. Stick around, because this story is chaos. Stick around, stay on this platform, and don't wander off to Apple TV, Amazon, etc. Then the episode settles down. We meet our talking head interviewees, the contributors, the narrators, if you remember our documentary modes, expository, remember? So we meet Kathy Schroeder. She's a survivor. She seems to still believe in Koresh, I think. I've seen her in another documentary, a bit older than this one. What was it called? Called Madman or Messiah, I think that one was called. And she's still all about Koresh's teaching. Like, I hope she's all right, I guess. We also meet Heather Jones. She was born in Mount Carmel and she was raised there. We meet David Thibodeau, another survivor. He wrote a book that's also called Waco. What is it? Called Waco, A Survivor's Story. I read that one ages ago and I think it's difficult with David Thibodeau. He either doesn't want to believe how much of an arse Koresh was, or he still believes in him a bit. It's really hard to tell. But Thibodeau does have some quite different perspectives, certainly on the fire, than the ATF people do. We'll get to that later. We meet Lee Hancock. She was working for the Texas Morning News at the time. We meet 2 ATF agents, Bill Butford and Jim Kavanagh. John McElmore, again, I'm sorry if I'm getting that name wrong, a KWTX news reporter, and he also mentions his cameraman, Dan Maloney. So we've got our key players of the doc. There's some recreations of the gun storage inside the compound, and just as a little hint, this looks a lot like the gun storage in the cellar in Red State. I mean, it's identical, really. I mean, maybe I'm reading too much into it, like all illegal gun arsenals inside people's homes or compounds must look much the same, right? How much different can piles of automatic weapons be? I don't know about guns. But in the episode, we quickly get to the blooper, can you call it that? The clanger, the gaff, the balls up of the reporter inadvertently letting the mailman, who is a Davidian, know that there's a raid on the way. Then there's some gun camera footage or reconnaissance recon footage taken from the helicopter, like close air support footage, I don't know what the right term is, from above the compound as the trucks full of ATF agents drive up. Now, I don't think this footage is real. It looks too clear, like they were trying to have a bit of a surprise, like would the helicopter be right over Mount Carmel? I honestly can't tell, and I can't tell from searching if this is real footage. Now, I did email Tillerman Films for clarification, but so far they've not replied. In fact, let's have some live research now. Let's have a look. Has he replied? I'll look in my other folder. Let me see. Scrolling down. No, he's not replied. If Tillerman Films do reply and they do clarify if that footage is real, I will, I don't know what I'll do. Put it on Instagram. ATF agent Bill says the Davidians shot first because he says the first rounds he heard being fired were from types of guns that the ATF did not have with them. So I'll say here, I believe that the Davidians did shoot first. I think after Ruby Ridge, the ATF was super twitchy to not shoot, to not have any shooting going on at all. Koresh had been telling his people for ages that the apocalypse would come to their door and that they would fight and that there would be shooting. Before it kicked off, Koresh opened the front door and stuck his head out. After he was told the raid was coming, witnesses from inside the compound said that everyone was getting armed. So it seems to me that apocalypse-mad Koresh or a terrified Davidian were more likely to have itchy trigger fingers than the trained ATF. I should also say, I'm not pro-ATF. I'm not on their side. I'm also not naive in thinking that government agents are not above opening fire and shooting civilians. But in this moment at Mount Carmel, given the context and the training and the fear-mongering and the terror, I think, and I can't prove it, it's just my opinion, and I'm in no way an expert, I think the Davidians might have shot first. And I'd even suggest it was Koresh. He was at the front door and he wanted Armageddon in his front yard. We're still in episode 1 of this documentary. The shootout started. It's awful. It's awful for everyone. Heather, the woman who was born at Mount Carmel and was one of the kids to be let out by Koresh during the standoff, states how the shootout, started from her perspective. She says, quote, "One of David Koresh's wives come running into the room. She had a gun. And here she mimes a big gun, like she mimes holding a long rifle type thing. She doesn't mime holding a handgun. When she got to the window, she went to open the curtain with the rifle, then all of a sudden she flew back right beside me. So I watched her get shot. I just remember her scream." End quote. Remember that bit for when we get to Red State in a bit. So Bill, the ATF man, narrates the footage of himself going up the ladder. It's the really famous footage of the ATF agents on the first floor, on a first floor roof of the compound. So they go up a ladder, they're on the first floor roof, and to the right of them, there's like a sticky up bit of a second floor. And the second floor windows there. If you've seen anything about Waco, you will have seen this footage. So Bill's narrating footage of himself going up the ladder. This is presented in split screen. On the left, we've got the actuality footage of the ladder and the rooftop. And on the right, we've got Bill narrating. So here we have those two documentary modes, expository and reflexive, working together. We've got expository as Bill is the voiceover, as he narrates that footage, and this edit is the evidence of Bill's testimony. And then we've got the reflexive mode, as it calls to attention the conventions of filmmaking in the split screen. We can also see on Bill's side of the split screen that he's watching the footage on a laptop. We can see the production detail of Bill looking at the footage and talking over it. The split screen allows us to see two things at once: Bill talking and the roof sort of window entry ladders footage. It seems dumb to say, but our eyes don't let us see two things at once. We are not chameleons, but the conventions of filmmaking, this use of split screen, does this for us. Using this alongside seeing Bill rewatch footage of himself draws attention and acknowledges the construction of the documentary film. Now, split screen more generally does a few things. It choreographs complex action sequences, and it tracks movements simultaneously of different team members. The documentary uses it for this later on, and it keeps us orientated in the chaos of this moment. It also connects distant characters for either this action orientation or, as we see later, for an emotional connection when characters are physically separated. So this moment of the story, the shootout, is of course extremely chaotic. Bill, our ATF agent, who the documentary film is using to tell one side of the experience of this moment, is positioned as narrator, which is fair enough. I mean, he was there. He is also positioned in acknowledgement of the construction of the film. This dismantles the illusion that the camera is the neutral window to the world. It exposes the subjectivity. it makes us aware that the narrative is shaped by the filmmakers. There are documentaries that are more explicit in their mode as reflexive, where we see the whole production team. So, for example, in Louis Theroux's Wild Weekends, we frequently see the camera crew. So American Apocalypse is doing this a little bit more subtly with the inclusion of the laptop in Bill's side of the split screen, and then the split screen itself removes this neutrality. Basically, asking Bill to narrate over this bit of footage and showing us that also shows us the subjective storytelling on the part of the director. The split screen then goes away and Bill looks into the camera for a second, looks right at us, not speaking. And here at this poignant moment, here come the bin men. God.
Hello, no one is available to take your call at this time. Please leave a message after the tone.
Okay, we're back. They're far enough away now that it shouldn't pick up on the mic. Let's remind ourselves where we were. Split screen, subjective storytelling. The split screen goes away. Bill, the ATF agent, looks into the camera for a second and looks right at us. And he's not speaking, but he stares right into your soul. His voice, though, is still doing a voice over as he describes going in through that window, seeing a guy through a crack in the door, and then shooting that guy dead. Bill looks us right in the eye. This direct gaze in filmmaking does a few things. He can generate sympathy, empathy, and it removes the viewer from a position of passivity. He kind of confronts us with what we're seeing. In this case, a man described how he shot someone dead. It increases the screen presence of the person looking down the camera at us. It tells us that the person is speaking their truth. It can be, in moments like this, quite uncomfortable. And it should be uncomfortable. He's telling us how he's just gone in and shot a Davidian dead. So when the ATF guys recount their story, there is footage. ATF gaining entry on the roof, shooting and being shot at from behind vehicles. When the Davidians recount theirs, there is no footage for them to narrate. So when the Davidians get their split screens, or ex-Davidians, each side of the split screen is just another Davidian speaking, or survivor. Not sure what's best here. Anyway, Kathy might still be a Davidian. Thibodeau and Heather, I'm not sure about them. Anyway, so the Davidians are in split screen. They only have each other to orient themselves and us in their side of the action. The split screen tracks the movements of the people inside the compound from the various descriptions of Thibodeau, Heather and Kathy. They all, of course, felt fear in this moment, and the split screen here connects these distant characters. They were in different locations in the compound, and it connects their emotional intensity when they were physically separated and experiencing the shootout slightly differently. The news reporter, John McElmore, he makes a dash for his car, he tells us, and fair enough, it sounds terrifying, bullets flying everywhere. He says in the car that he calls the newsroom and he holds up his phone for them to hear the gunfire. Remember this point for Red State as well. John tells us this little story. So the ceasefire happens, 4 ATF agents are dead. I mean, it's awful. I'm not sure how many Branch Davidians are dead at this point either, but certainly 4 ATF agents are dead. The ATF are retreating, says John, the TV reporter, and they use his car as a method of transport for an injured agent. The agent asked John to push his wedding ring back on his finger. Now, John has already said about the shootout, quote, "It was like going to the theatre and watching a war movie, but it was real life," end quote. That's very profound, John, thank you. But this wedding ring story, it's very 80s action flick, right? Did this guy also have just one more day until retirement? Like, that's what it feels like. And then John says, and I'm not laughing at this injured agent at all, like, horrific. But John says that because this injured bloke wanted his wedding ring more secure on his finger, that, quote, "he's probably a really good guy," end quote. I'm like, why? What? Again, I'm not laughing at this injured man, and I'm not saying he isn't a good guy, but what? I've written in my notes here, copaganda. I know the ATF are not cops, but for God's sake, eye rolling so hard I nearly blinded myself. He was probably a really good guy. Oh God, shut up. There's more split screens at this point as the sniper guy, Chris Whitcomb, who, to be fair, seems like a genuine fucking badass, gets the job that he's headed down to Waco. So he gets the call. Call Chris. He's headed down to Waco. And he's shown the footage of what's gone on. And that's done in split screen. So episode 1 ends with some recorded transcript between negotiators and Koresh. They ask him, quote, "Do you put your trust in the Lord?" And Koresh says, "I am the Lord." Yikes. Episode 2 is titled Children of God. An interesting choice, because there's another cult that goes by that name, I'm sure, but let's leave that alone for now. And then, of course, Koresh fathered children in Mount Carmel and had, let's just say it, children as his wives in there. Gross. The episode opens with the press conference, the first of many press conferences over the next 51 days, and there's a lot more split screening going on. So the opening of episode 2 feels very actiony, quite procedurally at time, and the score on this episode, the second episode, feels like a 90s action movie too. Throughout the 3 episodes, we get the text on screen, which places us in time and space, the location and the date, appearing on screen as if it's been typed. The letters as they appear also have a little beep sound like they're being typed into a computer screen. You'll have seen this convention in loads of action films. Little details like this place the viewer in the position on the side of the ATF, despite their mistakes. This is made more concrete by what Kathy Schroeder says in this episode. We get a bit of background on Koresh here, his childhood, his rise to leader. I won't go over it because it's in the doc and it's detailed brilliantly in Jeff Guinn's book. But when we get to Koresh marrying a 14-year-old and having babies with her, and then the quote-unquote revelation that Koresh had that God wanted him to have many wives and dissolve marriages and take those wives, shocker. Kathy Schroeder says that the 12-year-olds, 12 were of age and adults in her/their belief system. I think Kathy Schroeder can fuck right off. That's what I wrote for episode 2. It's all about the negotiations. Some kids came out, some adults came out, waiting for Koresh to finish doing some Messiah writing nonsense or other. And then episode 3 is simply titled Fire. Now this episode is rough. The ATF and the FBI and hostage rescue teams and negotiators are floundering. Everyone is, inside the compound and outside. They start with the agitation deprivation. So the searchlights on the compound at night, playing on mega speakers, like a phone off the hook dial tone. They play Nancy Sinatra's These Boots Are Made for Walking over and over again. They play the sound of screaming rabbits being slaughtered. Like, it's insane. I do wonder, would they do this now? Any ATF agents, FBI listening, if this is being tapped, would this still be a tactic? Like, if you're trying to get kids out of a compound, would you play the sound of rabbits being slaughtered? What's happening? Is this still a thing? Anyway, I don't know. Maybe someone can tell me. We get more split screen of the people gathering to watch from across the field. So Mount Carmel is on an ever so slight hill. It's very flat in this area of Texas. And a couple of miles away, you can just see Mount Carmel in the distance. So they've got what's the word for when they won't let people pass? Like roadblocks, I guess. A couple of miles in either direction, they've got a line that you can't cross. One of those people watching was Timothy McVeigh, who later went on to blow up the Mura building in Oklahoma City. What a prick. So on we go, the pressure mounts. Night vision footage of the tank breaking the wall of the compound, with the speakers inside telling those, this is not an assault. What is it then? So they're winging in tear gas. They've got the tank breaking down the walls, but this is not an assault. What is it? And then perhaps the most useful of the split screens. The fire breaks out from multiple points, 3 points of Mount Carmel, 3 points of the compound. From showing this in split screen, it's organising the chaos, and it's importantly here, connecting distant characters. Now this is crucial to how we understand what happened that day. Yes, the FBI and the ATF have been doing the horrible shit with the sounds and the breaking in of the tank, but they didn't burn these people alive. The fire was started at multiple points in the building at the orders of Koresh. Remember he promised a fiery Armageddon? There's also audio recording of Davidians talking about needing and pouring more fuel and needing more hay to, get the fire going. In split screen, showing the 3 fires as they became visible from various angles, it's clear where the fires could not have been started from some point outside by the authorities, by the ATF and by the FBI. David Koresh set his own followers alight. David Thibodeau denies this. Again, maybe he doesn't want to admit it, or maybe in the chaos he didn't witness it. I don't know. Interestingly, his mother, David Thibodeau's mother, Belinda, she's in this documentary, and she seems the most level-headed out of everyone, to be fair. I think she's a very interesting person. Anyway, distracted again. So the split screen here has its ability, or in its ability to connect distant characters. It's really useful because it's able to connect those 3 fires being started at the same time. And then the fire rips through the building, and there's that appalling footage of the film that we see the building just on fire and engulfed, and it's yeah, it's horrific. So, final thoughts on American Apocalypse. And it does quickly at the end actually point to the direct line between Waco and Oklahoma. So, and also I found out from looking at the sort of the filmography of Tiller Russell that he did then go on and direct the Oklahoma documentary on Netflix. So, you know, nice work if you can get it. The final point from the documentary, which I thought was great, was that it says that the hostage in this standoff was the FBI. Koresh already had written this script for Armageddon, and I think that's quite an interesting take on it here, that the authorities were held hostage by David Koresh rather than the other way around. I said it before, I said it again. Yikes. So it's on Netflix. Go and have a look. Do also read Jeff Guinn's book. It's an incredible read. He's an incredible writer, an amazing historian. Have a look at it. You won't regret it. Now let's talk about Red State, Kevin Smith's film. It's a genre mashup, as Kevin Smith himself calls it. It's horror and it's action. It's a bit torture porn at times. But clearly for me, anyway, it's a Westboro church and their homophobic bullshit meets Waco and the Branch Davidians. So I looked at interviews with Kevin Smith about this film, and all of them mention this kind of genre mashup element a bit, but most of them centre on the distribution. Kevin Smith distributed the film himself, and that's as literal as it sounds. He had no marketing team, no studio backer, no distribution into theatres. He literally drove the film around the States and showed it in theatres. I mean, fair play. Because that is highly unorthodox, that's what the focus of the interviews, certainly what I could find, were about. No one asked, so is this Waco then? Which is what I would have asked him. But I've not had the pleasure of interviewing Kevin Smith. Let's talk about Red State then, but first, let's hear the trailer.
What is this, man?
It's like Craigslist for people who want to get fucked.
I thought Craigslist was Craigslist for people who want to get fucked.
Right. We're getting laid, boys. She wants all three of us at the same time.
It's gonna be like fucking my mom. This is what happens when parents block porn sites, man. They make socially backwards kids.
Bet you boys want to get up to the devil's business, don't you?
So get drinking, because I ain't drinking alone. I don't let no man in me unless he's got at least 2 beers in.
Yes, ma'am.
Guys, is that you, Travis?
Welcome, family.
Good evening, Grandpa.
I hate the wickedness of America. Rampant fornication, adultery, abortion, flagrant sexuality. Everywhere.
Hey, you fucking bitch! Let me the fuck out of here!
And it's up to the righteous to curb the spread of this disease. You might take your children out now. Gonna get grown up in here.
Send the sinner straight to hell. Send the sinner straight to hell.
God doesn't love you. Unless you fear him.
Yes, sir. It's dawn here now, but we can be fully mobilized and on site in an hour.
Come out with your hands up, and you will not be harmed. Repeat, you will not be harmed.
I think it's the use of the word repeat that makes this work every time.
I never saw the hand of God so clearly in all my born days.
Those government people, they're gonna kill you too. You get down on your knees and pray.
You said this was going to be a simple in and out, sir? It will just shit itself.
Talk about fearing God. I fear God. You better believe I fear God.
How much you think a cross like that costs?
You mean the dollars or common sense?
Red State starts with 3 teenage lads who want to get laid. They found a local woman who'll have sex with them. It's not clear if it's sex work, come for money. If it is, I didn't spot it. But anyway, they go out to a trailer and they sideswipe a car which happens to contain the local sheriff getting a blowjob. But that's not important for now. They get to this woman's trailer. She gives them beers. The beers are drugged, of course. And one of the lads, played by Kyle Gallner, comes to in a cage. He's tied up and the cage is covered with a cloth. His cage is in a church, a little chapel, and this mad preacher is going on and on and on, and the preacher is played brilliantly by Michael Parks. He's preaching about hellfire and Sodom and the downfall of society, and Kyle Gallner gets a peep out of his cage, and they have a grown man cling filmed, all tied up completely in cling film to a cross up there in the altar, and this man has a ball gag in his mouth. So this man who's in the cling film, I think, is gay, and our little church group is luring and killing sinners. As the tied-up, terrified man is sort of trying to scream through his ball gag, two congregants wrap his head in cling film and they open a Bible which has a gun in the carved-out pages, a nice image, I thought there, and they shoot him in the top of the head. As the blood is kept neatly in the cling film, they open a trapdoor and throw the body, and down in the trapdoor we see the other two teenagers who were there trying to get laid, also tied up. So that's a very brief, very quick where we start in Red State. And that's where on the surface it's all a bit like the Westboro lot. And I'm not going to talk very much about them because they are deplorable and they don't deserve any fucking airspace. If you don't know about Westboro, do a Google, have a look and be prepared to be angry. Here in Red State, our church is called the 5 Point Church, and they have lots of similarities with Westboro Baptists in their hateful ideology. But it's in the actions of the congregants and the pastor and the authorities that I think the film is a clearer commentary on Waco. Pastor, who they all call Daddy, has an echo of Koresh, as Pastor Cooper here has an excellent knowledge of the scripture. David Koresh was also noted for his uncanny knowledge of scripture. Calling him Daddy also screams Koresh to me as well. He, after all, fathered many kids at Mount Carmel, and he was a father figure to Heather. She says so in the documentary American Apocalypse we've just been discussing. They also, these 5 pointers, have an arsenal, a stockpile of guns. The gun cellar here under the 5 Point Church building looks very much like that gun cellar in Mount Carmel. Again, how different can a homemade stockpile of guns, weapons, look from each other, but I think it's worth noting. Anyway, shit kicks off for various reasons and eventually the authorities are called. Now we jump to a suburban house where John Goodman, again, great role, is woken very early by the phone. The situation is explained to him and he talks on the phone and the genre shifts again and it feels procedural. Goodman's character, Keenan, mentions Westboro and he mentions the 5 pointers modifying guns. The Branch Davidians, as we know, were also modifying guns and he calls them gun nuts. It was, of course, the gun nut bullshit that was a defining factor in Timothy McVeigh in that direct line from Waco acting as a domestic terrorist and blowing up a building in Oklahoma. On the phone to his boss, Keenan says, quote, "Are you sure that's wise at this juncture?" He listens and then says, "Well, our history of situations like this hasn't exactly been..." And then he's cut off by his boss. So the film is acknowledging these tie-ins, these failed raids, and then our agents, Keenan and his ATF crew, roll up at the door of the 5 Point Church. So remember that sheriff who was getting a blowjob? Well, he's back now and he's there with the ATF agents and he is skittish as hell. One of our teens, a load of stuff has gone on in the film in which 3 of our teens, I'm not going to, one is dead by now, another one has a gun and is making a break for it. He runs out the building towards the gates where our agents are, and the skittish blowjob sheriff panics and fires. He shoots this lad. Again, yikes. So Keenan goes nuts at him, and rightly so. And then the shootout begins. The 5 pointers start shooting and all hell breaks loose. What's interesting here is that while the first shot came from outside of the compound, it's not the ATF that shoots, it's the sheriff. And I really like that little bit of ambiguity here. Who fired first? Well, in this script, it's a third party. It's not a cult member, it's not an ATF, it's our skittish sheriff. So, shootout. ATF guys are ducking for cover behind vehicles, they're shooting. 5 pointer members are shooting from the compound, and Keenan calls his bosses for backup. And it seems like the bosses are a bit confused or reluctant to help with what should have been a simple operation. Keenan yells, "Well, simple, just shit itself." And he holds up his phone so the person on the line can hear the shooting. Do you remember the TV reporter guy? Yeah. So more stuff goes on. Keenan reveals to his colleagues that they are to go in and kill everyone inside. And from inside the compound, one of the 5 pointers, a woman who was knitting through the execution earlier, she approaches the window with a big gun, pulls aside a curtain, and gets blown away right in front of a younger member. Remember that from Heather's testimony? Yep, it's all falling into place. Much like at Waco, they shoot in tear gas. They bust through the walls with armoured vehicles. It's shootout, chaos, and then, well, I'm not going to spoil it if you've not seen the end of Red State is brilliant. When I first watched it, honestly, My jaw fell open. It was, oh God, it's so good. Watch the film. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing. I've gone quite quickly at the end there because my computer's running out of battery and I can't have the computer plugged in while I record because it makes it hum. So that's why I'm speeding through the end. So to sum up, Red State might be about Westboro types, general cultiness, but it has so much Waco in it that it just seems to me to be a narrative film addition to the wider Waco cult story. And I think, as Kevin Smith is about my age, hang on, let me look it up. Again, live research. Oh no, he's 11 years older than me. Kevin Smith would have been about mid-20s when the Waco siege and standoff at Waco happened. Still young, but in the right age bracket for that pendulum swing of nostalgia, given Red State was made in 2011, to encourage for Kevin Smith a revisit to that stuff. So Smith grapples with religion a lot in his work, probably most obvious in Dogma, and I think even in this genre mashup that is Red State, it's clear that this is still a commentary on fanaticism, on blind faith, on fear tactics, on a group's personal and dangerous Armageddon, and of course, on the bungled efforts of authorities that lead to absolute chaos. It's such a good film. I wish I could tell you about the end, but I don't want to because I don't want to spoil it for you. And those that have seen it, you'll know why I don't want to spoil the end. It's just so good. Go watch both these texts. Watch American Apocalypse, watch Red State, read Jeff Guinn's book, and I'll be back. I don't know when, but I will be back with some more overthinking and analysing true crime. Goodbye. How's that battery doing? It's about to die.